So as you can tell by the thumbnail, we're looking at the Akaso V50 Pro SE. Is it a big improvement over the Akaso V50 Pro? Let's do a deep dive into this camera, coming right up. Now before I get to all the video samples, because you know, I can talk about the specs and all this stuff, but what it really comes down to is video samples, audio clips and everything. And comparing it to the original Akaso V50 Pro, which was a very good camera when it first came out, offering native 4K, good audio, surprisingly good audio, pretty decent stabilization, although it warped the edges a little bit. And then Akaso had the V50 Elite. And this is all after their original V50 that came out 2.5 years ago now. Then they came out with the V50 Pro SE, which I am very late to the party getting this, but Akaso was nice. They sent it to me to review. And then I got the Akaso V50X. And there's going to be something about the V50X I'm going to talk about at the end of this video that's really important. By the way, this is going to be a long video. It's all shot in 4K. And there's a reason why it's long, because I want to give you video examples of the V50 Pro SE. I want to show you the image stabilization. I want to show you 4K at 30. I want to show you 4K at 60 on a gimbal. And then I'm going to do a comparison between the V50 Pro SE, the V50X, and then the V50 Pro, all together, walking side by side. And just so you can see image stabilization, which, by the way, the V50X has a better image stabilization, but at the cost of a crop. So it definitely crops in the image so that it can smooth out the footage a little bit better. But there's another issue, and you'll notice it in the video as we go on. So let's just get to the video, and then I'll talk about the rest of the stuff at the end. All right, first quick test of the Akaso V50 Pro SE, so special edition. Shooting 4K, 30 frames per second with electronic image stabilization on. I'm just hand holding this. See if we can see the sun through the trees there. Still got flowers blooming because it's still in the 90s here. See the color of the sky. Pool I need to clean again. Nothing like these hot temperatures that keep the pool completely out of balance. And I'm behind the camera about 1.5 feet, 2 feet. So this is the audio that you hear. That's direct sunlight for you. I'll get into a shade here. So Akaso was nice enough to send me their Akaso V50 Pro SE. So I want to see the improvement, or is there an improvement? Because I know that it does 4K 60 frames per second on the SE, where the V50 Pro does not. But I want to see, because right now I'm shooting 4K 30 frames per second, and I want to see, is there an improvement in stabilization and image quality, or is the 4K 60 the only improvement? Which is a big deal, by the way. So I don't know if you can tell from my shadow, but I have both cameras on a metal mounting surface. They are side by side. Just walking handheld with this, just to see how the stabilization looks, the image quality. Want to see shadows, how well that they look, like right there in that area there, to see, are they crushed I want to see the color of the fence to see which one is accurate, because I know what the fence actually looks like. Color of the brick, because the Akaso V50X is a little bit heavy on the red. And while we're out here, we'll do a quick little audio test between the two cameras. We'll start with the Akaso V50 Pro, the original. Audio test 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5, and now the new Akaso V50 Pro SE 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5. Let's see which one sounds better, or do they still have the equal audio quality? Now the V50 Pro has a pretty good decent mic, and the audio always sounded very good out of the camera, so I'm kind of curious to see if that still remained the same. See, we'll look up into the trees, make sure there's no purple fringing around any of the branches. Now on the V50X, there is some purple fringing that you see in the trees, but I did not notice that with the V50 Pro, and I don't think it's there with the V50 Pro SE. Now, one thing I have always noticed about the V50 Pro is its electronic gimbal stabilization on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being like rock steady / hyper smooth. I would say that the electronic gimbal stabilization was a solid 6. But what happens is on the outside edges, you would see a lot of wobble that would happen, and of course that's the software trying to compensate for movements. Come up here, take a look at that flower, and then I'll zoom in on that flower from both cameras just to see detail and all that, because both cameras are set up identical. And we'll see how it looks. Then we'll do a little movement out at the park, and I'll throw the V50X into the mix. Well, now we're looking at the Akaso V50 Pro SE, their special edition, which is really nice because a portion of the price of the camera goes to Leave No Trace. I don't know how much that they donate, but a portion of the cost of the camera goes to this charity, so that's nice. So I am trying out 4K 30 frames per second electronic image stabilization. Now I've got 3 of these cameras right now. I've got the original Akaso V50 Pro, the new Akaso V50X, and then the Akaso V50 Pro SE. God, that's a lot to remember. So what we're going to do is we're just going to see image quality and stabilization between these 3 cameras. And of course I got the sun behind me, but before we do an image quality and stabilization test, just a quick little audio test. Now we know that the Akaso V50X, the audio is very lacking on this camera, so but we're going to do it anyway just for giggles. So on the Akaso V50X, 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5. On the Akaso V50 Pro, 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5, and the Akaso V50 Pro SE, 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5. Just saw a squirrel scooch off. Where'd he go? Well, let's just take a little walk and see how the stabilization looks. Got all 3 cameras tied to a board together. Make sure that they're all nice and straight here. See if you can see my shadow down here on how I've got the cameras lined up together. So I've said it before, I know that the Akaso V50X is fantastic when it comes to its image stabilization, but it achieves that by cropping in on the image a lot more, even though I have the field of view set at 170 degrees. Now the Akaso V50 Pro and the Pro SE are all at super wide with EIS on, 4K 30 frames per second. But let's just see how good that the stabilization is on the V50 Pro SE. And now something I want to do, I want to look at skin tones, because skin tones have been problematic for a lot of action cameras. The V50X has a little bit of a higher red intensity to it on skin tone, so it will make your face look a lot redder than what it actually is. Let's see what the Akaso V50 Pro SE looks like versus the Akaso V50 Pro. Then we'll do a little running test. So I'm going to run up to the bridge. See which one was more stable. Don't know. Okay, now we're shooting 4K 60 frames per second. Now it does not offer electronic image stabilization at 4K 60, so what I've done is I've put this on the Hohem iSteady Pro 2 gimbal so that we can try some nice stabilized smooth shots at 4K 60, and I'm going to do some slow motion stuff with it now. So my impressions of the Akaso V50 Pro SE. Is it a worthwhile upgrade to the Akaso V50 Pro? I think that it is. I think the stabilization is a little bit better. You don't have as much of that little jello-y warping on the outside edges. I think the image quality looks really nice. I think the audio is still very good on the V50 Pro SE. I like the fact that it offers 4K 60 frames per second, which at this price point, considering that a portion of the proceeds of the purchase of the camera goes to this charity, very nice. So I think it is a worthwhile upgrade, considering there's not very many 4K 60 frames per second action cameras out there in this price range with good image quality. So did you notice what I was talking about the V50X? Well, I feel bad in a way, and I'll tell you why. When I first got the V50X, I was very, very, very pleased with it. Yes, the colors were a little bit red. Your skin tone was a little bit more red than usual. It's got a little bit of that purple fringing, chromatic aberrations that go on in the trees. But when you're talking about a camera that at the time was $84.99, you just couldn't beat it. the audio sucks. I mean, I would have to boost up the audio 5 to 6 dBs in post just to try to get it to where you could understand what's being said, where you don't have to do with the V50 Pro or the V50 Pro SE. But here's the big problem and what I feel bad about. When I did my first initial review, I didn't have EIS in the menu system. It just said gyroscope. And the EIS was great. And then Akaso released this new firmware. And I downloaded it into the camera, and now it showed EIS, electronic image stabilization, and gyroscope. And because there were some people that had said, well, mine says electronic image stabilization and gyroscope, yours only says gyroscope. So I had updated the firmware. And in that one video, I was like, well, when I did the update video, I was like, well, God, the audio and the video got out of sync. So I contacted Akaso. And Akaso said to reformat the SD card in my computer to FAT32, which I did, and then stick it back into the camera and then format it again, and that'll take care of the issue. Well, I only did about a 1.5 or 2 minute video sample just to see was it in sync or going out of sync. And it was in sync for a 2-minute video. Once it passes 2 minutes, that's where it really starts getting out of sync. So I've contacted Akaso. Akaso said, hey, you've got to use the SD card that we recommend, the Samsung Evo. So I purchased 2 of those SD cards. My SanDisks have never been a problem. I've got it in my FDR X3000. It records 100 megabits per second. No issues with any of my SanDisk cards at all. But I went ahead and got the Samsung. I thought, who knows, maybe. Tried some more video footage, and it's about the 220 to 230 mark that the audio starts getting out of sync. So I thought, well, maybe it is video frames being dropped, and that's where the out of sync is. So I stuck it in handbrake, made sure that it was a constant frame rate when I recoded the video. That didn't fix it. So it's an audio issue. For some reason, audio sampling is now different. And I've contacted Akaso again saying, please send me the new, or send me the old original firmware that was dated, I think it was 6/9/2019, something like that. But please send that to me so I can let the viewers know that I actually took my recommendation, bought this camera, and now they see that there's an audio issue as well. And so that you can rectify it. Otherwise, you're going to have a ton of returns. I have yet to hear back from Akaso. If and when they do contact me to let me know either there's a new firmware that fixes the audio sync and maybe boosts up the microphone volume, I will pass that along to you. Or if they send me a link to the old firmware, I will also pass that along to you, because the old firmware, I recorded a video clip for 11 minutes on that initial review video, and it never got out of sync. So, and the image stabilization with just gyroscope only in the menu worked great. So, if anybody from Akaso is listening, please send me that old firmware so I can pass it on to the viewers, because a ton of viewers have purchased this camera, or come out with a new firmware to fix the audio video sync and also boost up that microphone, because as good of a budget native 4K great electronic image stabilization action camera as the V50X is, its audio is gotta be the worst audio I've ever heard in an action camera. But I boosted that up in post, because you know, a lot of cameras, when they first come out, the manufacturers, they release a new firmware to adjust some of the little parameters, and I was hoping that that was going to be the issue. So anyway, back to the V50 Pro SE. Is it a good camera? Yes. Is it a step above the V50 Pro? Yes, it is. I think it's a very good camera all the way around. The camera shots that you saw side by side by the pool, I set them both to daylight and white balance, and for some reason the V50 Pro SE likes to go way oversaturated and way warm on the image. Otherwise, if you go just natural on it, it's fine. So anyway, so that's that. The Akaso V50 Pro SE. I give it a thumbs and a half up because it is definitely an improvement over the V50 Pro. You know, I mean, we live in an age of GoPro Hero 7 or GoPro Hero 8 now, the Osmo Action, so expectations have really rise. But remember, there's a price to pay for the GoPro Hero 8 or GoPro Hero 7 Black or for the Osmo Action. So budget-minded, this gets 2 thumbs up, budget-minded. Overall, I give it a thumbs and a half up. I hope you guys have yourself a great video. If you watched this far, thank you very much for watching, because I know it's a long video. And until the next video, which will be shorter and more concise, I'll talk to you later. Bye.